Hi guys, it's Corinne, and today I wanted to share with you how I made this trim out of crepe paper or party streamer. I used it in my smash book or my crush book just I think a couple days ago, and so I thought I'd do a quick tutorial. It's a super simple method of doing it. Here's a flower here that I made out of it, and here's the trim here. I'm going to use some black streamer since I think on camera it'll be a little bit easier to see. So I'm simply taking probably about 18 inches of crepe paper, and I simply sewed a stitch down the middle. I have a large piece of white string here. I'm doing that for camera's sake. I think it'll be easier to see. And I'm simply going to do a running stitch, a long running stitch. So you don't have to be careful with this. You don't have to be precise. And the bigger you make the stitches, the bigger the pleats will come out in the final product. If you want the pleats a little bit smaller, then you want to do it a little bit smaller. Okay? So I'm just simply going down and then up. Down and then up. Okay, so now I'm going to go through here. So now with the white thread, you can see it. Let me just cut off some of my extra string here. Using regular polyester white thread. So now that's all I did, is I just kind of stretched it out, get the look that you want. You can pull it tight. Just kind of mess with it until you get it the way you like. This does not have to be perfect. And then go ahead and put a knot in at the end. And then I added some of this trim to it. This is the Celebrate It brand Occasions trim. I got this from the wedding section at Michael's. I used a 40% off coupon, and you get quite a bit. It doesn't say how much, but you get quite a bit. So I'm going to just go ahead and use some leftover trim that I have. I'm going to cut off 2 sections. Okay, now if you have a lot of extra glue strings that are not pulling off quickly, you can take your heat tool to it quickly and it will get rid of all those little strings. I don't know if you could see that. It'll get rid of all those there. So I'm going to do that real quick. So now for a flower similar to this, I'm going to go ahead and get my white streamer out this time and cut off a large piece. I'm cutting off probably 18 to 20 inches. And on these I'm going to do the same thing, however instead of putting a stitch down the middle, I'm going to put a stitch towards one of the ends. And I'm just running it under and then up. Again, this does not have to be perfect. I'm going to run this down the entire length of my crepe paper. And then once I get to the end here, I'm going to pull my thread all the way through, let it kind of, see how it automatically goes into the flower shape. So I'm just going to pull that tight. I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue just to hold it together. And add a little hot glue to the middle and pinch it all together like you would a rosette. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to grab another large piece, probably about the same size, 18 to 20 inches. Now on this one I'm going to fold it on itself several times because I'm going to cut the width of it down just slightly. So once it's folded, I'm just going to take a little portion off, okay, and I don't need this. I'm going to reopen this back up and stitch it the exact same way I did on the first one. And just, again, put a little bit of hot glue to glue this together. I'm going to add a little hot glue to the center. Okay, now you're going to layer this on top of this one. So I'm just going to add some hot glue in there and just push it on this one. Just kind of fluff it up, do what you want, so you're happy with how it looks. Okay, don't have to worry about this being perfect. Again, depending on the look you're going for, I want it to be a little bit fluffier, so I'm going to add one more layer to it. Fold it on itself. This time I'm going to take a little bit more than I did last time off. Some glue on this and put this down. And take your scissors, and trim around if you want. The crepe paper is very forgiving. Okay, get rid of all this excess. And now you can put a center in it, a jewel or a pearl, just to finish it off. And then that hides any of your stitching right there in the middle. Okay, so here is another one that I make. I'm using about a 1.5, maybe 2 inch punch, And I'm cutting out a circle from cardstock, just a piece of scrap paper, and I'm going to cut off just a small portion, probably about 7 inches or so. Let's see. Yeah, probably about 7 inches. So I'm going to cut off several of these. On this one, the only difference is I'm going to gather it at the bottom. So instead of sewing, I'm just gathering it. And I'm going to be using my hot glue gun. You can also use wet glue, but it will take a little while to dry. And after I've gathered it, I'm just pinching the ends here. This does not have to be perfect. Okay, so with my hot glue, I'm just going to put a little hot glue here and press this down into it. And just be careful not to burn yourself. And I'm just holding this here while I'm kind of adjusting this and fanning it out. It does not have to be perfect, like I said. And I'm just going to do that once again. Gather it at the bottom, pinch it together, fan this out a little, and glue it on the opposite end this time. You can add a huge jewel to it if you'd like. You could add a smaller size jewel. And again, if I added this, I would fluff it up. I usually leave them without centers until I know what I'm using them for, and then I'll add something. I tend to add pearls to the middle of them. And if I were to do that, I would fluff it up a little bit more. So I just want to show one last one, what it looks like. This I did, as you saw, one layer of the crepe paper. I want to show how it looks to do several layers. So I have 3 layers here that I'm just going to line up. And I'm going to do the exact same thing I did and stitch right down the middle, and being that I have my white, I'm going to use my white again. And I'm going to put the stitches fairly close together. So again, exact same thing I was doing before, just up, down, a running stitch down the whole middle of all 3 of them. And as I'm stitching, I'm going to try to keep them somewhat together. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now let me just kind of stretch it where I want it. Just trying to make the pleats a little bit even here. Again, does not have to be perfect. Okay, and I'm going to add this trim on again. If you had flat back pearls, that would also look great. I don't have any flat back pearls right now, so I'm going to add this on. I want to, if you remember, we have 3 layers here, so I'm going to separate the top layer and the second layer on both sides, just carefully working my way all the way down. Because this paper can tear pretty easily, so you want to just kind of go slowly and be careful. And I'm just going to now separate the first and second layer and work my way back. And then I will also do that to the other side, and I'll show you the results when I'm done. So here you can see I have fluffed out all 3 layers, and then I just kind of push it down here and fluff them out as you need them. And that gives it more of a ruffled, fluffy look, which I like as well. So here's the one with just 1 layer, and this one is the one with 3 layers. So it just gives it a different look, more of a ruffled look as opposed to a pleated look. So just like this one that I made with 3 layers, I made another one with the white out of 3 layers, same thing. So you can see the difference between 1 layer and then these have 3 layers. So again, it looks more ruffly. I just wanted to show what it looks like to add to a gift bag. So I just have a generic gift bag here. And I'll just run a line of hot glue going across the top. And I'm purposely going to let it hang off the edge a little, and I'm also purposely not putting it all the way to the top. So I hope this gives you some ideas. Thanks for watching.